Hi, I'm Jackie.
And I'm Seth.
And this is Never TMI.
Where we talk about real things.
And nothing is ever off limits.
All right. Another
Hello.
podcast.
Yes.
Another day in the studio.
Yes.
It's
AKA our bedroom.
Dallas, Texas.
It is a little too beautiful. I don't think I want it to be in the 70s.
70 day in December. It's hard to beat those sometimes.
Yeah. It's a little too warm, but it's a nice little break.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're so excited. Today,
what we talking about, me love?
We are talking about intimacy in marriage that isn't physical. So no sexual, no physical whatsoever, but just different ways that, like, you know, I don't know, just different ideas, different, I don't know the word, but we're just talking about how there are multiple ways and approaches to be intimate with your spouse or your partner, or your whatever you want to call it, that doesn't have to be physical. And in my opinion, it's a lot more important even. So,
and this is just from our experience. Like,
these are things we do, we've learned,
tried, and they've worked for us.
Yeah, and we're still obviously learning. We always want to preface by saying we literally have 0 degrees in this kind of stuff. It's just, we're passionate about talking about it. We've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. But
trial and error. So hopefully y'all can learn from our mistakes.
Yes, and we are learning constantly from others. Like, I'm learning from, people in my life, people with marriages who have succeeded and failed. And I feel like, we're constantly pulling and gaining from others. And so we just want to share with you guys things that we do and that we've started doing because maybe there was a lack of intimacy or whatever. But I'm excited because it is so important. And let's do it.
Yep. So we just have probably a handful of thoughts.
Yeah.
Practices that we've done that I think help draw Jackie and I closer together. Like she said, on an emotional level.
Yeah.
So our first one that we would title it as is time blocking personal time together.
Yes.
So you want to explain what that means, or?
Sure. And side note, these are all like really tangible things. Like they've actively made an impact on our marriage.
We hopefully these things can be like
night and day. Like,
well, just like little, like she said, little acts that it's not like this earth-shattering like concept. It's just like putting to practice little things, and those little things over time make a big difference in your relationship.
Totally.
That's what we found.
I mean, we wouldn't be where we are now without these things for sure. Right. But they're practical, tangible, and applicable like today, And
I think too, even before we go on, that's the, when it comes to anything, but especially working on your relationship, and that's something we've tried to stress here, is that relationships require a lot of work. But like understanding that it doesn't happen overnight, like these are things that, we've been married for 5 years and we're still obviously nowhere near where we want to be, but it's taken 5 years for us to get where we are today. And so having that in mind, just, that there's not a quick fix to something that's really so valuable and something to span so much time. It's not just going to happen overnight. So, and
it's often little things, like it's often really little practical things. And we're doing marriage counseling. We just started a few months ago. And it's crazy because every time I'm thinking like we're gonna hear this groundbreaking thing that we can do that's different, and it's never the case. It's always like little things, little tiny little things, little notes, little things that we're reading.
There's no new knowledge under the sun.
It's just like you just have to put in that work and do the little things, and that's typically what makes like the ripple effect a big difference. But anyway, okay. Yep. The time block personal time together. Okay. So that I would say, especially in the evening. So both Seth and I work from home, and it's sounds like a dream. And like we get to see each other all the time, and we do, but like that intentional time is still so necessary at the end of the day. Like, so instead of, once we put the kids down and all that kind of stuff, instead of like going to separate rooms and kind of doing our own thing, we make sure to like come together. And even if our plan is like, even last night, like I was exhausted and I was just planning to watch a show, zone out, and he was going to like work on the budget. But we still like sat next to each other. I laid there and watched my show. He budgeted, but like instead of just like, all right, put the girls down, peace out, getting to either physically be near each other before we go off and do our own things and just kind of like recap the day, talk about how it was, like literally for 5 minutes, like how was your day? How are you feeling? And something as simple as that, like literally checking in every single day, just so that you're not just like strangers in your home, and even asking like any good conversations you had today, anything that kind of stuck out, like what was the best part of your day, what was the difficult part of your day, or we'll even ask that at dinner, like to include the kids. But that just at the very least, bare minimum, at least 5 minutes every single day, just like check in with your significant other and kind of just recap and make sure like you're good, I'm good, okay. And it's as simple as that. So that's one thing that really makes a massive difference. And then you can go do your own thing.
But even beyond that, we really try to set aside, and again, for us, it's the evening.
Yeah, to be together.
And like Jackie's saying, where we work at home, sometimes it's hard to not, if you don't get your stuff done during the day, the nighttime can be like a prime work time. But prioritizing our relationship, I have an alarm in my phone at 8, and so after 8 my phone goes on
do not disturb.
The sleep mode.
Yeah I guess.
Or do not
it's
disturb.
It's kind of gone a little crazy lately.
I should probably switch it down. But that's like my time to say, and granted things come up, sometimes I have a call or something that goes beyond, but from like 8 on, I'm trying to unplug from the day, unplug from work. And that time, is time with Jackie. And like she said last night, where she wasn't feeling well, it can look as simple as we're just sitting on the couch together and we'll do our check-in and we'll talk obviously through some of the stuff, but just being together, like having that time
off of our phones.
Yeah. And then other times, it's, from 8 o'clock on, it's just we're hanging out. We're in the room. We're cleaning the kitchen together, like random things. You might even have things that you have to do, but just doing it together.
Yep. Next to each other physically.
And using that time to talk and just to, hang out. Like you're just hanging out, having intentional time to hang out with your partner.
And so it is work sometimes. Like I can't remember the last time we just had like a separate evening. And we prefer it that way, but I'm sure there's like nights where it would be so easy for me to just like lay in bed and watch my show, and for Seth to go, and I know there's a million things he could do if he wanted to. So it is, that's not to say it's always like gonna be the easiest thing to be like, all right, now it's you and me time, because especially with kids and all that kind of stuff, it's easy to just go and be done for the day. But it really does make a difference in our relationship for sure, to like, and sometimes there's those days where it's like, man, I cannot wait to just, I feel like I haven't seen you, talk to you, whatever,
right,
for us to just like sit and be next to each other, be together, and we'll watch something most nights and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's definitely a big one, I would say.
Yeah, so definitely just setting aside intentional time in your daily schedule, however you do that. And for us, or for me, I guess, Jackie doesn't even do it that much, but I try to time block my day. And so we try to have, about 2 hours a day where we're together. And that time, that 2 hours looks different every day, but usually 8 to 10-ish, on the reg is kind of what we shoot for and are consistent with. So
yes. Okay. Number 2 would be a full body check-in. Seth, go for it.
So what we mean by a full body check-in is like spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, and anything else you'd want to add to that. But just, we really try, and this isn't a daily thing. This is probably more like sometimes spur of the moment, or sometimes if you feel like it's been
like
a
once
while.
a week, maybe once every couple weeks.
Yeah, it's just kind of like when if you feel like estranged, or it's just like, oh, we've been so busy.
Yeah.
And like, how are you? It's like a moment to just take, set aside a time to just really like intentionally ask how they're doing. Because I know there's been days, especially as of recent with being pregnant, it's like, she's not feeling well, and I don't really know it because it's hard to tell what goes on in the woman's body sometimes. Not so you kind of like overlook things, and
I'm like crumbling over here, and
and so when you take that time, you can and there has to be a level of transparency to it as well. So it's not just like, oh, I'm good, like go into it. And I don't know, it's just like a full body check-in to say like, how are you actually doing? Where do you feel like you're succeeding? Where do you feel like you're falling short? How can I be praying for you? Like, and
what's something that's taking up like most of your mental energy? Like, that's something I'll be sure to ask Seth, just because he can be very
mind busy.
Yeah, like he'll look chill and fine 24/7. But I always know there's a lot going on in his brain, and he's very type A. He's very organized. He's very on it. He has the most obnoxious ongoing list that I don't think we will ever see come to an end in this lifetime. And so it's like, I know he's got a lot going on in there. So every now and then it's like, what are you the most stressed about if you had to pick something? Sometimes it's finances. Sometimes it's, I don't know, Kennedy. Sometimes it's me. Sometimes it's time and work and whatever. So really, and it definitely does not have to be this like dramatic set aside time. Like, okay, tonight we're going to talk about, sometimes we're eating lunch or having our coffee, and it's just like, okay, how do you feel physically? I know Seth is very intentional, not intentional, very intuitive when it comes to his body. So that can like affect him as well. Just if something's off, like I want to know, because I feel like it helps me to help you, or just to be like aware of like, oh, his back is hurting, or his knee, or his shoulder, or whatever. It's like just it creates, even if I can't do anything about it, I'm more aware of like the state of my other half. You know what I mean? And that's really important. And it does absolutely deepen the emotional intimacy, just where I'm like, I know where you're at. I know what I can be like praying for. I know, maybe to give you a little extra grace because you're not in the best mood, or maybe you're super stressed. So maybe I'm not going to ask you about something financially if like that's something that's on your mind. Just, it's like taking into account where they're at. And it also helps like on your end, or on my end, to be able to tell you where I'm at, because I might not be like moping around all day, but it's like, oh, I'm really having a hard time emotionally. Like I'm on the brink of crying, and it's not my personality to be like just sitting and crying on the couch. So to release that and to like let him know that, just in a way that feels like, okay, I'm invited to like tell you how I feel, feels good and helps me to feel known. And that's very important when it comes to emotional intimacy. Yeah. Anything else on that?
No.
Moving on. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Third one is asking intentional questions about work. And
yeah.
You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. I like this little back and forth. I would say, like work wise, especially, it is so important to me. It always has been to like be in each other's work life. Like especially when we lived in Coronado, it was like he'd come home and I have no idea what the heck he's doing at work. And it's like, how's your day? And he would just be like, oh, it was okay. It was fine. And it was like completely unacceptable. Like, no, we gotta work on, like, I want to know what you're doing, who you're talking to, good conversations, hard conversations. What are you stressed about? Like, and it was like such a game changer when, you would like open up and tell me those things. And then I think he felt more safe. Like I actually cared. Like I wasn't just like, well, how was it? Actually tell me everything. It's like when you're and at the beginning it was like, you're so far removed, you don't even know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So it was fine. Even if I told you a story, you wouldn't even know who it is. But like by the time we ended up moving, you debriefing about your day, there were things you would tell me. I knew all the names of your coworkers and some of their personalities and just like.
Yeah, it's like important to share because, work is such a big part of our lives in a day. Like,
absolutely.
So just having the intentional time to share about that takes up so much of our time and energy. Like, totally allowing your spouse in on who you're working with, what you're doing, like the relationships you have at work, the projects you're doing, like what's going well, what's hard, like. And I know some of these kind of all maybe seem like they blend together, so at the end we'll try to do a summary and highlight the differences, but just having that intentional time to debrief in a day about what you're doing, probably the vast majority of your day. And I think that's why we put that on the list, is because like Jackie was saying at the beginning, it was like we were essentially living two separate lives. Totally. Like Jackie had her thing during the day and I did my thing at work during the day, and then we'd come home and hang out and do all that together. Just like we were together in the evening, but we had no clue what was happening in the. And so I really feel like that actually helped us come together, from early on in our marriage, just understanding what are we doing. And even from my perspective, it's like I come home and I can, like, as I understand that Jackie's understanding what my day looks like, it's easier for me to then communicate and go to her to say, like, oh, like, you remember this guy at work? Yeah, well, this happened today. Yeah. And, we had a great day on the job or whatever. Like, so sharing more, moments from my day, that became easier because. And quicker. It wasn't like, well, he's this guy who, whatever. It's just like, oh, so-and-so, And it made me feel really special. It made me feel like, oh, I'm your friend on this. Like, we're talking about something that I'm not directly involved in, but like I loved when he would just invite me in that space and we could or he'd ask for advice, and it just meant a lot to like be a part of his life in that sense, because I hated not being a part of it. It was just like, no, I will not, have this life where I don't know what the heck is happening at work. So I think that is a really, really big one, and it takes effort. It takes energy. Sometimes you don't want to talk about work, but that's, where the work comes in. It's important too. Mm-hmm. So yeah. Okay. Intentional date nights on the regular and planning dates to be on the same page. So yeah, let me explain what that means. So kind of two separate ideas in this point, but through, what is it called? Marriage Today. That's Jimmy and Karen Evans. Yeah, that's just a podcast that it's like a marriage ministry that we listen to a lot, and that is the first place we really heard this concept of having regular date nights and understanding the importance of that. Yeah. And from an emotional standpoint, this is like an outlet for you guys to go out and just have fun. And without your kids. Right. So one of our, one of our pointers is scheduling an intentional date night without your kids where you guys, and we try to do it once a week. You kind of got to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
But I think weekly
is important.
It's an important time just to go out and have fun together, and it's almost like you're pursuing your partner as if you were dating, even though we're married. And I think that's like a lost art sometimes when you get married and life just gets super busy, and so having an intentional time regularly, consistently on the calendar to go have fun.
Yeah. And it can be at home too. It doesn't always need to involve money. Sometimes it doesn't work out like that.
Sometimes it's, we watch a movie and popcorn and
as long as it's intentional and it's set aside time, like Tuesday is going to be our date night. You can have a spot that you go to. We used to go to Blue Goose and get some margs and chips and queso, and that was the dream. So like it doesn't need to be anything crazy or special. It does not need to be expensive. But intentional, just has to be on the calendar. And then the second part of that would be
planning dates. So what that is in addition to a date night, and sometimes the kids would come with us when we would do these.
Yeah.
But we would call it like a planning date where we would go.
And these are way farther and fewer between.
Yeah, this is kind of whatever you might need it to be. But as we were trying to figure out our schedules just with work and kids and, where we work from home, sometimes those lines get blurred. But we would regularly go to like a coffee shop, and Jackie and I would just hash out schedules like for the next week. Okay, what does our schedule look like? And that time of just communicating about our lives, what we're doing, what we're
goals.
Yeah, it kind of is like even a space for you to get on the same page with goals, what you're working towards, what are your, what's your vision for this week or this month, like however often you plan that. That was really great and valuable time for us to understand. Like, and even just knowing her schedule in a day or in a week, it's like having a better idea of what she's doing. I can then kind of like serve her in those, or just by knowing that. And it's like, I'm trying to think of an example, like Mondays Kennedy has ballet, so it's like they don't get home till 5:30, but that's a time when it's like, no, I know this is a consistent thing, so I can arrange my schedule to have dinner ready when they come home.
Yeah.
Just like,
which is so nice.
And so just really trying to use it to understand and just to, again, be a part of their lives.
And it builds that intimacy, even knowing what his life is looking like, what his days are looking like, and even little things like, especially on the planning dates, like we would talk about physically, like what I'm going to try to eat, what I might be cutting out, what Seth, I'm going to try to fast on Mondays or something like that. Him, not me. But that is something that just helps me to like better know you, better understand like where you're at, what you're doing, what does your life look like. It helps just to be on like the same page and it feels nice when, like when you have something of mine in your calendar, when you're aware of like what's going on, or being able to go to appointments with me, like for the baby, even like the fact that, we're kind of somewhat aware of like what's going on in each other's lives. We can work around it so that we can be together more. It just helps to like know what's going on in each other's lives. And then also the bigger picture of like, what are you really focusing on in life right now? Like what are you going for? What are your big goals? What are your, short-term and long-term goals? Like how can I help you with them? It just, that absolutely builds intimacy for sure.
And something I've even done is I'll start to put some of Jackie's things on my calendar, even if I don't have anything to do with it, but getting a notification about it. Like if I didn't have my phone, the amount of reminders I have, or like alerts or alarms that go off just to like
so randomly. I don't even know what they're for.
I don't know what I would do, but sometimes I'll do that just so that I get like a trigger and it might remind me, like if she had an appointment, it might remind me to ask her like, oh, how was the appointment today, as opposed to like getting to the end of the day and say, oh, what'd you do today? And it's like, did you not remember anything I told you? So,
or even phone calls, like knowing, I don't know, like for Seth, like he'll talk to his parents like once a week. So like there's so many times that I'm like, dang, I have to ask, like, how was that phone call? Like, how did it go? Because I care. Like, it's just like little things. I don't want to live separate lives where, you know, he's just living over there and I'm living over here. So I think just little things, trying to be as like in tune and aware of like each other's lives as possible, not in like this draining way, but like, oh, how was your conversation with your mom? Like anything, and I'll always ask, like anything out of the ordinary that you talked about, like was it good, was it whatever?
I think too, you know, it's kind of all about getting on the same page. As I think as you go through life, it's so you can ride the emotional waves together, and you're not like, Jackie's on a high and I'm on a low, and you're trying to then relate to each other. Like the more in sync you can be, like I think just it smooths out some of the potential issues that can come up. Just because you're doing life with your partner, and you know, Jackie's like my best friend, so it's like the more in sync we are, the more in tune we are. We found that just creates a smoother transition, kind of just in all aspects of life.
And we've seen conflict arise from not being on the same page often.
Oh, absolutely.
So like, you know, if there's like a hard day, this kind of happened a little, not super recently, but I had like a really hard day. It was just something on the calendar that was just sad and whatever. And he like didn't ask me about it or didn't notice or didn't whatever. And that was like hurtful to me. And especially when the bar is set high, it's like when we are so in tune, it makes it's like, oh my gosh, that kind of hurt that you didn't like realize that or care about that or whatever. Like our, you know, or financially, like our conflict would come if I didn't know that he's like really hyper focusing on something financially and I'm over here like not thinking about it, not really caring about it. He's like, what the heck, you know? It just, so a lot of our conflict has come from not being on the same page, and I feel like that's, you know, I'm sure that's like a common thing. So it does help to like be aware of what's going on in each other's lives, what's going on in both of your lives, just like somehow merging it together and just being in communication about that is super, super helpful.
Yeah. All right, last one. Choosing to do something of the other's interest.
Yeah, and this doesn't have to be like okay, this week I'm going to do something you like to do, and then next week you can do something. But just being intentional about like, you know, I'm going to feel a lot closer. Like we're friends. This is my best friend. This is my life partner. Like so much of like emotional intimacy comes from like the friendship portion of our relationship. So like if, you know, I want to watch a show that I'm sure he doesn't really care about and he watches it with me, that's really special to me. And it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, you're my bud, you know? And this show, he wants to watch this Western show. What's it called? 1972. No? Yes, it is.
What is it?
It's like this super Western. It is 1972.
We haven't watched it yet.
We haven't watched it yet, but we're planning to. And like I might like it, I might not. Westerns are not my thing. But like he has mentioned, I want to see this. I want to see this. So it's like, great. That's the next show we can watch. We can start. Because he cares about it. And it's like, I want to be your friend. I don't just want to be like your wife that is like, okay, you have fun. I'm going to go watch the Kardashians in my room. Like we can, it's like an intimacy builder to step into each other's worlds and kind of do things that might not be our personal favorite, but like, hey, if I get to be next to you and with you, like that's great. And then you never know, like there was a show called Hell on Wheels that I was like so not excited to watch, and it literally became one of my favorite shows ever. So it might be something that you end up really enjoying, but it is important to And I guess you can talk about the 5 love languages.
Yeah, I was just going to say it ties into the concept of the 5 love languages, which, if those of you who don't know, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages, excuse me. And I used to be an unbeliever until I was just completely proven wrong. But
wait, really? You didn't believe in it?
Yeah. Do you remember the conversation we had? We were in California with Rachel. Was in the car.
Rachel Hahn?
No.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And it was just, we had this random conversation. I just was like, yeah, I don't know if that
maybe I do. Was it in
really
the evening,
works.
like
And
after church or something?
Yes.
Okay.
There was this random girl who stayed with us, and she
was like semi-homeless at the time. It was a unique situation. But anyway.
And so she went to church with us one night, and like on the way back or on the way to church or something, we were talking about this concept of the 5 love languages. And I was just like, yeah, I don't even, like, I understand the concept, but I don't know how real it is. And both this girl and Jackie just like flipped out on me. Like, are you serious? Like,
because I was like, bro, I'm not gonna be married to somebody who doesn't believe in this.
And then I ended up reading the book and then putting it to practice.
Or we listened to the audiobook, right?
I mean, yeah, so probably reading.
We did.
If I say I read a book, I 99%
listen to it.
So, and then I put it to practice, and it was like magic. But it's basically the concept that each person prefers to be loved in one of 5 ways.
Yeah, they like go in order, kind of.
Yeah, and so you knowing what your spouse's love languages are can allow you to love them in those ways. For example,
because you can be like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Like if someone's number 1 love language is physical touch, but you are a person of acts of service and you're loving them with acts of service, but not physically touching them as much.
I'm missing it.
Yeah, it's like their love tank isn't getting filled the way that they desire it to be. And if you do that, then, you're filling up their love cup, and it's just better for everyone in the relationship. So kind of this same concept from an emotional standpoint, we're talking about choosing to essentially love them in the ways that they want to be loved, not the way that you think they would want to be loved, or the way that you want to be loved, because that's not always how someone else receives love the best. So, and
you might there's been times where both Seth or I have been like, wait, you don't feel that? Like you don't, or what? We'll ask each other very often, like, do you know that I love you? And sometimes it's a yes, and sometimes it's a, like, I mean, I think you do. I know. And it's like, obviously we do, but it's kind of like a little check-in of like, yeah, but I haven't really been feeling it lately. So like, there's times where I'm shocked, where I'm like, I might be putting in work in the words of affirmation department, which is my number 1. But fun fact, Seth and I have the complete opposite love languages. So like, I could gas him up all day, like, words wise, and tell him how amazing he is and how handsome he is and all this kind of stuff, and it really not mean much. As if he were to do that to me, it would be like, wow, like mind-blowing. But acts of service is his number 1, and that's literally my number 5. So I remember when we were dating, like, dishes would be in the sink and I'd be like, come on, let's watch a movie, and he's like, he couldn't focus. It was like, no, there's dishes in the sink, like I can't enjoy myself if there's dishes in the sink. So it was just like, oh, what? So yeah, it is important just to know and be aware of, like, so you can love your spouse, because you might be expending, is that a word? So much energy, like trying to love your person, and it's not doing much. You might as well put the energy to like the correct love language.
And each person has some of all 5 aspects.
Like it all is important. But
essentially, if you haven't read the book, you should read it. I think it would greatly help your relationship.
It'll turn you into a believer, like Seth.
So let's recap real quick. The 5 tangible, what do you want to call them? Practices
Yeah, just ways that
we can be more intimate together in
a
a
non-physical sense.
Right. Time block personal time together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something we try to do daily.
Yep.
A full body check-in, so we're talking spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. That's something, again, you could time block it, but we don't think of it as that serious, and not something we do every day, but just the occasional check-in, like how are you really doing, deep down to your core.
Mm-hmm.
Asking intentional questions about work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is something we try to do every day because we're working most days, but just getting to know that part of your spouse's life or of your partner's life, because that's such a big part of their lives that sometimes we just kind of glaze over and do our own thing. And
an example of like a couple intentional questions about work would be like, did you have any memorable conversations today? Did you have any frustrating conversations today? Like, did you talk to anyone that you don't normally talk to, or did you talk to someone, like, did you have any conversation that stuck out that was good or that you enjoyed, or, you know?
Yeah. Also, like, what did you have success today at work? What was successful? Like, what are you working on? Like, it doesn't all have to be about relationships at work either, you know? It's like, what did you do today?
That's a good point. I guess that shows what I care about. Like, who'd you talk to?
Any girls?
I know.
Yeah.
That too.
Intentional date nights and having regular planning dates, just so that you're on the same page together and you guys are prioritizing having fun together. And the last one was choosing to do something of the other's interest. And just really serving your spouse or your partner in the way that they like to be loved.
Yeah.
So, any closing?
Yes,
closing
I think at the end of the day, it is absolutely impossible to have any kind of emotional intimacy if there's like a roadblock mentally. So I would say openness and honesty to me is like, I don't know, the root of like intimacy. So like I can't fully let my guard down and be intimate emotionally. Like I can't let Seth fully know me and let my guard down and just be 100% me and comfortable and free, for him to love me and for me to love him and to know each other, if there's like something in the way. So if there's anything that like I maybe haven't told him, that I, you know, something that's kind of bothering me that like I haven't communicated with him that I need to communicate with him, or something that I've been hiding from him, like literally at the end of the day, absolutely nothing matters more than like just an open, honest, when it comes to intimacy, like you gotta just be 100% honest. So as scary as it might feel to like tell them something, or I don't know, like something that's been on your mind, something that's hard that you are afraid to tell them, whatever, for both men and women, for both parties, like you gotta just be 100% open, honest, or else it's impossible. Like there's no way. And even at the beginning of our marriage, like there were so many things that Seth was hiding that none of the work we would have put in, or that we put in, would have done anything if he never like came clean with it. That's when things began to change, and that's when we really, really became best friends and could really like actually work on our real relationship. Any work outside of that, like before he was 100% open and honest, it was just in vain, 100%. So I think it's impossible if you're not open, honest.
Yeah.
That would be my closing point. Do you have any?
Well, yeah, and I think even to that point, I'm reminded that when you are intimate emotionally, and especially to any guys listening to this, the more emotionally intimate you are with your wife, the chances of your physical intimacy increasing is substantially more. So when you can really relate on an emotional level, I think that just it'll improve your physical intimacy as well. And I know we're not talking about that today, but they are definitely related. I think my closing comments would be, Just the ideas of attitude and effort. And I had a football coach. My football coach in high school always said that the two things that you have control of in life are your attitude and your effort. And this is just in light of knowing relationships require work. You can work at something with a bad attitude or a good attitude, and you can choose to put minimal effort or maximum effort into it. And really, it's what you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of sowing and reaping. So hopefully these are tangible ways that hopefully they're all things that you've heard and just old news to y'all, and you guys are doing it. If not, I hope you guys found a nugget that you can kind of take with, run with, or chew on and make it your own. Like that's
they're simple things.
But that's all I got.
Well, nice. Okay.
All
Thanks
right.
for listening.
Yep. Well,
Make sure to what's it called? I don't even know. Rate it. It does help. It does mean a lot, and we literally love reading the reviews. It's like so special. But it does help. Sorry, go ahead. No, what?
I was gonna say thank you for everyone who's either rated the podcast
or
left a comment. They are really encouraging to us, and we're glad that we can just be a little light of something in your day. So,
and it helps other people to find us, and
so if you can either like it or rate it, that definitely helps the podcast as well. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. We're excited for next week.
Yep. All right, I'm Seth.
And I'm Jackie.
This is Never TMI. We're signing off.
Peace out.